Okay, welcome everyone to Hangout with an Expert. I'm here with Mark Getman, the New York Guard Public Affairs Officer. Welcome, Mark. How you doing?
Good, doing good.
Awesome. So I figured we'd just get right into it. So tell me, what does PAO do? I mean, when I was in, I understood like you guys dealt with like the everything with like media and stuff like that. That's the only thing I know about public affairs.
What we do is we have dual mission as public affairs. One, to get our message across to the general public who aren't aware of what we do aren't aware what the New York Guard is or what the New York Guard does. So we have photographers of public affairs. Supposed to have public affairs teams in each major command throughout the state, taking pictures of them doing various training, and then they'll write up stories. Those stories would go to me as the public affairs officer to vet it, to edit it, and then I forward it up to our higher headquarters, Division of Military Naval Affairs, so they could send it out to multiple media sites and also put it on the DMNA website. And also we send stories to the State Guard Times, SAUGUS, State Guard Association of the United States, and it gets published in their quarterly newsletter. Also, some of the stuff does get picked up by the mainstream media, I guess, when we send an event to upstate, and they'll send press releases about it to get media coverage. So that's one, and then we also have our own internal public affairs to let people know. We share pictures, images, but it's mostly external to get the word out of what the New York Guard is doing to help the National Guard and to help the state.
Okay, awesome. I noticed you guys are the ones that when I go to the New York Guard website, you guys are the ones that write up the main articles, because sometimes you're on TMNA, I think .gov. Are you guys ones writing those articles up?
Most of the time, when you go to our public Facebook page, that's controlled by us, by our public affairs headquarters. I have a specialist who controls our social media. So I'll post stuff, he'll post stuff. It's limited to who can post stuff. Anybody could reply to it, being an open Facebook page, but we mostly post the pictures and videos and events of what's going on, formations, promotions, awards. DMNA will send that to them, and then they pick it up and they'll post it. And a story that we just sent to them was of our soldiers on state active duty. They in turn take that and they distribute it to DVIDS, which is Defense Video Imagery Distribution System. That goes through DoD wide and then could be picked up by mainstream media. So I work closely with DMNA, and they'll even call me or call the New York Guard to cover some of the National Guard stuff that they can't do.
Oh, nice. Cool. Okay. So you guys augment them in the public affairs capacity too?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So before we dive deeper into New York Guard, I just want to know your quick history on like where were you? Did you serve in previous branches? Your roadmap to the New York Guard.
Sure. I was actually I'll go back a couple of years. I was in the Civil Air Patrol for several years. I was their public affairs officer for here in Long Island. They had a change, and it was just too far for me to go all the way out east on Long Island. I heard about the New York Guard, and I joined the New York Guard in 2002 as a corporal, corporal's E4, yeah, sorry. Because later the corporals and specialists are the same, right? So I was an E4 in the New York Guard out in Huntington, and then I over the years moved to Whitestone, and then I was commissioned in the New York Guard as a second lieutenant, then promoted to first lieutenant. But I wasn't doing public affairs at that time for the New York Guard. I was the S1 admin officer for the 14th Brigade. I was in the New York Guard for about 4 years, and then I decided, okay, let me do this and get paid for it. I went to the National Guard, took a reduction in rank, went in as a specialist, E4, communications 25 signal, 25 uniform signal, completed that. 6 months later, I was actually appointed as an officer direct commission as a chaplain candidate. So I would say that was the quickest accession from enlisted to officer was 6 months right out of AIT. I became accessioned. I've been a photographer since I was about 16. So with my background in photography, my BAs in communications, television production, I reached out to the National Guard when I was in there and I said, hey, look, as a chaplain candidate, I can't carry a gun, but I want to carry a camera. I carry my camera around and I would start taking pictures of the units, my unit in training, field artillery unit, doing different things whenever we went into the field and started doing more and more public affairs work unofficially for the National Guard. Then I became the unofficial unit public affairs representative for my battalion. So additional duties besides being chaplain, I would always be around with a camera. I was also in the Joint Task Force Empire Shield, which are the soldiers you see at the airport and train stations. I was their chaplain too, and whenever they would have a special mission, I would always go out with my camera and photograph them and promote what they were doing as well. So I guess public affairs was always an additional duty that I did unofficially, and I was even called to do for other units, and I'd go to parades and Veterans Day parade, and I'd go to the St. Patrick's Day parade, and I'd end up shooting this for the National Guard, which they would then put online, DMNA, and put it on DVIDs, which is the Defense Video Distribution System. And when I left the National Guard, I decided to go back to the New York Guard. This was in 2014, and it was a toss-up. Do I stay as a chaplain or focus more on public affairs? And they said they were good on chaplains, but they really needed public affairs, and they wanted somebody to take over the public affairs. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I built up the public affairs section, and now I have headquarters staff, and I have photographers in the major commands, and basically everything filters to my office. To me, to my staff, and we distribute it out to promote the New York Guard and to augment the National Guard. So I got a call the other day from the National Guard to cover something if needed be. I said, sure. It turned out it was changed, but this shows that I'm there and we're there to support the National Guard.
Nice, pretty cool. So talking about the New York Guard, how large is New York Guard now? What's the average? I don't know if you can release that information, but like, what's the troop count that you can release?
Right now, we're around 450, 475, or under 500 right now.
Okay, and that's in all the different regions of New York. That's including
that's statewide. Yes, that's statewide.
Okay. Has your numbers been increasing, or has it been average, or?
Some years it's been going up, some years it's averaging. I mean, it balances out because you have those leaving and then you have coming in, so it kind of balances out and offsets it. So we see it's kind of staying steady right now.
Okay. In terms of so the other question I have with about 500 soldiers, which is basically about the size of a battalion. What have you guys been up to lately? What have you been up to this year?
Well, this year is a big year for us, and I have to get the plugs in. We're celebrating 100 years of the New York Guard. The New York Guard was established in 1917, and we're promoting our centennial. We've designed, I've designed a coin, 100-year coin. I don't have it in front of me. 100-year centennial coin. We've already sold out twice on them. So that's 600 we've sold already, and we just reordered another 300, and that's it. We're not reordering anymore. Get your coins now because they'll be gone.
You guys have like the New York Guard Association, right? Like they're the ones that sell it.
The New York Guard Association, correct. So it says New York Guard 100 years of service, and then on the other side it shows all the unit insignias of the brigades or major commands that are active now. So that we've been promoting with that. We have T-shirts that also say 100 years of service on the front, and it says New York Guard on the back, established 1917. mugs, commemorative mugs,
He's
and
going all
oh
out.
yeah, we're going all out. And we just had our big Sleepy Hollow Memorial service, which commemorates the service members who died. 1917 protecting the waterways of New York, and we had major news coverage. We had about three news channels there covering the event because we did that in conjunction with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. They were predecessors, and they now took over. They took over what the New York Guard did back then. They protect the waterways, so it's they're our brethren, and so we celebrate. We had that ceremony, and coming up in August 5th at Camp Smith, we have our annual training, and we're
Okay.
having a big celebration for a special barbecue day event for the soldiers. So we're gonna have a nice big event for that, and
You guys
uh,
do boot camp up there, don't you? Like in Camp Smith, that's where you guys do your recruit training.
that's our annual training. Yes, our annual training is in Camp Smith, August 5th to the 11th this year. There's going to be a special unveiling of a special commemorative plaque. That's going to be held during annual training, and then later in the year, as part of the Centennial, we're having, instead of our holiday gala, we're calling it the Centennial New York Art Centennial Gala. So we're trying to make it a big gala, and yeah, it's a big year for that for us. Plus, we've had about 70 soldiers total who've been on state active duty with the National Guard, Air National Guard, Army National Guard, Naval Militia, working up in Ontario, Lake Ontario, helping fill sandbags because of the lakes overflowing. So they've been on state paid active duty.
Wow. Okay. So you got wow, 70 soldiers doing active duty. That's pretty cool. I mean, I've seen some of the news clippings for them, but you still have soldiers months after activation. You're still on active duty, right? Like there's a lot of guys
There's
still doing.
still there's still some, yeah. It's trickling down, but there's still some. So it's been going on for about a month and a half already, a little bit longer.
Okay. Wow. So it's a joint task force. You're working with the Army National Guard or and Air National Guard.
Our Air National Guard, Army National Guard, and Naval Militia.
Oh wow. Okay. So it's basically all the branches of New York Armed Forces.
All the New York Armed Forces, yes. So they're calling it Joint Task Force Ontario.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow. That's wow. Cool. Um,
This is big because it gives a lot of the newer soldiers who just came in last year a chance to get on state paid active duty and work alongside National Guard, Air National Guard, Naval Militia to work on a joint mission.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's a big operation. But you guys always been working. I mean, you guys are a big, from what I understand, you guys always worked with the Army National Guard, augmenting them and supporting them in numerous ways, right, over the years. I mean, this is not just like a one-off. You guys constantly do this. You had that hurricane, Sandy.
Sandy in 2012. Yes, yes. So we also had the National Guard were activated, Air National Guard, the New York Guard were activated. I was in the National Guard at the time, but also a lot of the New York Guard were activated at that time, and they were on duty for 30 days. Some were shorter, some were longer. But we had a New York Guard in charge of the command centers in Camp Smith. We had New York Guard in charge of soldiers from the National Guard. So it was joint missions with the National Guard, New York Guard. Army Reserve, or even well, I don't think we worked with the Army Reserve, but I think we worked with everybody at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was serious thing. I mean, with a hurricane hitting New York, I mean, that's not. I mean, that's a serious event. That's pretty cool that you guys. Is this just like? But do you guys normally throughout the year work with the National Guard on very missions, or is this just during like emergencies during here?
Mostly we work with them on missions. State active duty it depends how serious the state active duty, but we also do some training with them Some of the units actually do joint training with them. The engineers, our engineers work with the New York National Guard engineers in some engineering projects. I work with public affairs. I've worked alongside with public affairs from the National Guard. We'll cover an event together. They'll call me to shoot it, and the officer I'd work with, he'd write the story because he's not a great, good shooter. So he knows I'm a good shooter. So picture shooter, not. So he'll we have to watch pictures, and he'll write the story. And there's events. Last year, I was actually called up to photograph the 69th Infantry training in the NYPD Training Center. They were doing urban training. My images with his story ended up going all the way up to the DoD, onto the DoD website.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Wow.
so we've been become an integral part of the National Guard. Not just us, but our medics, our lawyers, who provide legal services for the Air National Guard, Army National Guard before deployments, and we have COMO, MERN, that they work military emergency radio network, that they are training together with the National Guard as well. So we're seeing a lot more joint training and joint operations.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think the New York Guard is kind of like does exactly what the State Defense Force was designed to do, is to augment and support the National Guard. And you guys are doing that incredibly well, because every time I'm reading is, your engineers are building, I think it's called mounts, MOUT, right?
Right, right.
You're building mounts, your legal department, your JAG Corps is assisting with mobilizations. I read about that. Your medical guys are always helping out with the National Guard. Then you guys were a big part of, from what I understand, CERF, right? CERF.
Right. Chemical. I forgot what CERF stands for, but that's no longer our mission. But they did work along National Guard with that. When it was our mission.
Yeah, that was so. I mean, you guys have been doing a lot of key support and augmentation of National Guard, and you basically being the example for other state defense forces to follow. So that's really cool. I wanted to ask you, what's the relationship between the New York Guard and National Guard? Are you guys? I mean, deriving from the last question, is it do they? I guess, do you guys find you're incorporated into majority, like when the National Guard has a mission, do they constantly try to incorporate the New York Guard into those events?
Some units do, some units don't. It varies, but we're seeing more and more requests, especially in Camp Smith, that's run by the 53rd Troop Command, that they use us, they use the New York Guard for traffic control in Camp Smith, because it's a big training site and they just don't have the manpower. So they call up the New York Guard and say, hey, can you guys help us with traffic control? And our soldiers say, sure, when, what time, we'll be there. And the National Guard has been very welcoming and very receptive, and we've been very receptive of them, and they both ways, that they see what we could do. And I guess it depends on the mission and the needs of the National Guard. If they need us, they say, hey, can you spare a couple people? We every year there's a Thanksgiving event down in the Javits Center in the city. It's the governor's Thanksgiving event, and he even shows up from time to time. And the New York Guard has been asked to work alongside the National Guard, basically filling boxes of food for the needy. But you see us side by side doing this, and with the governor will point out, hey, New York Guard working alongside the National Guard, and that's a humanitarian mission that we always get called back to assist with. So it doesn't have to be a actual training mission, but it's an event like that is a great event because the soldiers love to do that too, to help out those in need.
Okay, cool, nice. In terms of, I heard you guys are also participate in, I think it's called tag matches.
Yeah.
Every time new National Guard does tag matches, I always see, your soldiers, and you can easily tell by the patch that there are in the challenge. Sometimes not mentioned in the article, but I can see pictures with that patch, and for me, I always question: is the New York Guard participating in these matches, or just
No,
assist?
they participate. They've been participating even when I was in 2002. We have a tag pistol team, and it's soldiers with their own pistols. They have to be licensed, of course. State they have a New York City license or whatever license they need to be able to carry their own pistol. The ammo is provided when they train or practice. It's on their own expense, and they start training. They start training in January for this event, which is in June. So for 6 months, and we had a team of I think 12 this year, and a few of them placed fifth position individual, sixth individual all around. Several years back, they scored first and second.
Oh,
Yeah, so if you look on the DMNA Flickr site, you'll see the pictures, and you could tell the blue patch. Those are our guys, and we're always welcome to participate.
oh, wow, that's really cool. I mean, so I mean, you guys are going, you're going basically. I mean, your New York Guard guys are going toe to toe in a competition with U.S. Army National Guard.
And we had a lot of our soldiers score in the top 10 in individual different categories.
Wow, that's that. Wow,
So
that's
you have units, Army National Guard, you have even Air National Guard competing. So from all around the state, and they're always looking for soldiers who want to participate.
wow. Okay, wow. So it's basically open up to all soldiers in New York Guard can participate, or I mean, at least apply to try to get on that team.
Right, they have to apply. They have to have their permits. They have to have their own weapons. And have to have the time to practice. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. So but I mean, wow, that's amazing. And you guys scored a first and second place a couple of years back. You just
Couple
said,
years
right?
back, yeah. So it's the Adjutant General's match. So we're all fall under that's what it stands for, the Adjutant General's match, and we'll all fall under the Adjutant General.
So I know a couple of years ago, your main focus in the New York Guard was SURF, where you're augmenting the Chemical Biological Task Force for the National Guard. But your missions recently changed. You guys are, I heard, moving more to communications. Is that correct?
Communications, yes, that's a big focus is the MERN, Military Emergency Radio Network teams. So a lot of our MERN teams were actually activated for Sandy. When communications were down, they went, set up the emergency radio network, so Cam Smith could communicate with Latham. Latham could communicate down to Long Island because there was no other way to communicate, and these were essential missions. And the first thing is, at any disaster, is setting up commo.
Yeah, I remember during Sandy, I'm originally from Brooklyn, but I remember I was there for Sandy, and I had my phone, and I couldn't. I think the cell towers were going out, and I think there was a time when Apple just introduced over Wi-Fi, so I still had Wi-Fi. I was able to. It was the only way I was able to communicate with my family in Virginia, which was I had instead of going through the towers, I had to go through the Wi-Fi network and do kind of like a voice over internet protocol call. And I was just kind of stunned by, that basically all the communications and a few other things went down. I remember my electricity was down. I mean, it was back to the Stone Age once this hurricane hit. It was pretty devastating. Certain parts of New York I heard were greatly affected, like southern Brooklyn, I think, and Staten Island was really bad.
So we had teams that went out and set up the military emergency radio network systems, so there could be communications between the units on the ground, and so the TOC and Camp Smith and Latham knew what was going on.
Okay, cool.
I was even out there. I was sent go Howard Beach on day one, and there was no communication. Cell phones were down, and I have my own satellite phone, so I was sent out with the Humvees, and people were like, oh great, the National Guard, can you help me? Can you help me? Well, we don't have even they didn't have radios, and I could take out my cell phone, satellite phone. And the soldier's like, sir, that was issued to you? Oh, yeah, issued to me by myself. To this is mine. But I used it. It was the only way I could communicate with people. And when I call and I say, hey, look, this is what's going on. Well, how are you calling? I was like, through my satellite phone.
Wow.
So now they learn from that, and teams have the portable MERNs.
Oh, okay. And besides commo, are you guys? Is there any major focus like?
The main focus now is everybody's to be a generalist. Everybody should know a little bit of everything, because we never know what the mission is going to be. In the future, everybody's going to know how to use a chainsaw. Everybody's going to know how to use a forklift, pod distribution, for distribution centers. So they want everybody to know a little bit of everything, because you don't know what the mission's going to call for. And it could be health and welfare, knocking on the doors and checking on people, see how they're doing. It could be setting up MERNs. It could be setting up traffic control. So they want it more to be everybody to be generalists, and in the case something happens, they don't have to scramble for drivers or forklift drivers or chainsaw operators, or the common core tasks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I can imagine with the chainsaw. I remember back in when I was living there, when I was living in Rockland County, New York, there's a big need for people because the trees fell down on the road, and it was just like the fire department was trying to do it, but they're volunteer and they only have a certain amount of people doing it. And I remember there was just even getting out of Rockland County was a nightmare, because you're literally zigzagging all around the whole bloody county. And it's just like, how the heck do I get, to New York City, or even just to get to work? So I could, that's definitely, I can imagine on your radar to get soldiers out on the field and try to restore transportation throughout New York.
And the other thing I forgot to mention that we were called for is not last year, but the year before, the big snowstorm in Buffalo. We had when Buffalo was hit with the snowstorms, they didn't have enough. They couldn't get enough soldiers out there to help with the shoveling of the snow, and we sent at that time we sent also soldiers again who lived closer to that area that could get there. They were on state paid active duty, and they were shoveling snow. But you know what? It's a mission. They were again working alongside National Guard to help shovel snow. So it's tasks like those that they call us for. Say, hey, we need help. We need soldiers. We need help. We need, especially with a lot of National Guard units being deployed, they don't have enough of their own. So that's why they call us.
Do you guys still do like search and rescue kind of missions like that?
No, the search and rescue was pulled a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay. For you guys to focus on the commo and such.
Commo tasks, general tasks, pod distribution. They want us to man the distribution sites for, say, like another natural disaster. That there's main sites that you could get food, you could get clothing, you could get gasoline if needed. So they found that those were needed.
Let's go over to the training portion of. Because one question that I had was, you guys do like every state defense force has a boot camp, right? Like some of them do for like a couple of days. You guys have like how long is yours? From what I understand, it's like a week, right?
Initial entry training is a week for those with no prior service, yes, and that's coming up in August. Like I said, this year is a big celebration. So the first day they're actually going to have a big barbecue and special event for the past soldiers that have been in, and for the current soldiers. And then the next day, boom, you're going to go right into your training. During that week, they're going to stop in the middle of the week to do a special unveiling of the plaque. And then graduation is going to end. It's actually going to go this year, Saturday to Friday.
Okay. And like this boot camp, from what I've been told and some of the videos that I saw, it's very, I mean, it's like Army, it's like Army boot camp / Marines. I remember there was even somebody even mentioned to me there was they even one year brought like a Marine drill instructor on base to help with the training. I mean, it's like a 1 week from what I was told that it's very strict. It's Army level kind of training.
It's
Boot camp
very
was.
intensive. They try to do as much soldiering, basic soldiering that they can for those who don't have any prior service within a week, to teach them the basic soldier, how to be a soldier, how to march, how to wear the uniform, they do some land nav. They'll do some common core stuff that we could do, and in a week, there's only so much you could do in a week, but they try to pack it as much as possible from 05 to 9 at night. So the long days, and they even have some PT in them too. They make them run a little bit.
All right, so it's I mean, it's a full-fledged boot camp in essence.
Yeah, like a basic training. Yeah, 1 week accelerated basic training, if you want to call it.
Wow, and I think that's important because I mean, if you take somebody that's that has no prior military training, but I mean, from what I understand, majority of state defense forces, 80-90% of the people are prior service, but the 10-20% that come in, it's good that you guys put them through a 1 week training because to kind of military life and civilian life are very different animals,
Right.
and it's good that you guys put in that kind of training to kind of familiarize them. Hey, this you got to take orders, and then help them with some land nav because, I can imagine, it's a big state, and when you guys are doing some missions out there, that comes in extremely handy.
They're actually calling it not land nav, but orientation. How to orient yourself to a map. If your GPS goes down and you need to get from point A to point B, learn how to orientate yourself to a map by using landmarks, and compasses, or how to map reading, basic map reading, orientation. Which way is north, south, east, west, and look how to read a map. And we also do a basic officer course as well. So the basic officer course is for those who are newly commissioned officers, and they have a week of leadership and how to become officers as well. So that's during that week as well.
So, wow, that's okay. So that's great. So the next question I have was, what is the future of the New York Guard? Are you guys, and you dived a little bit into it a few minutes ago about you guys are helping out in numerous tasks, like for chainsaw, the pod distribution. But if you had to kind of like if the majority of on a yearly basis, no emergencies, no like hurricane or anything like that, the most active units where you guys are majority focusing, is it like that engineer unit that you guys are help building the mounts? Is that where they're most active? Or is your medical team working more than like which unit do you feel like is more active and you guys are kind of like leaning pushing soldiers into like, hey, let's focus more on the legal aspect or the medical aspect, or let's put more engineers in the field, let's help them out? Where do you feel like
what they're trying to do is get away from specifics, specific unit assignments, and that everybody will know, like I said, everybody will become a generalist, and everybody will say if they need, right now the engineers, for example, I'm just giving a hypothetical, say the engineers only have 20 soldiers, but they need 40 chainsaw operators, so they could now turn to other units besides the engineers and say, hey, give us some guys who are chainsaw qualified, or we need forklift. But meanwhile, the units in the city only had 2, and you have 5 upstate, but they need them downstate. So they want everybody to know everything. And yes, you'll still have your engineers who their primary focus is engineering, but they'll also be generalists as well. So the medics are always going to be medics, so that's separate. The lawyers are still going to be the lawyers. They have their specific tasks, but the general soldier, the average soldier, let's put it that way, is going to know a little bit of everything. So they could be called up, hey, we need 50 guys for Como, and you don't have to just rely, well, I have 2 in this unit, 2 in here. No, now you have, out of 400, I'll give you an example, 400, you have 250 that are Como certified. So they want everybody to be certified in everything. This way, when the National Guard calls up and says, "Hey, we need 40 guys for 40 guys for forklift, and we need 20 guys for this and 30 guys," you could this unit we don't have to scramble, and we could just start.
That's what you see the National Guard asking for a lot is like generalists like this, right? And that's why you guys are going to that. They're asking for like, I need forklift operators. People that can drive the truck, the deuce and a half, so things like that. Is that what that's where
that's where it's heading. That's what they want. They want us all to be generalists. And yes, of course, you'll have still have public affairs who are specialists in that, or your lawyers, your doctors, whatever. But across the board, they want everybody. Everybody. I'm talking from the private to even to the colonels. They want them all to know how to do it, learn how to do it. The colonels may not be going out and doing it, but they want them to know what it is to go through this training, and at least say, okay, if you ever need they're not going to send a colonel into the field, but they just want everybody to have this training.
Okay, wow, all right, awesome. So I mean, that's all the questions I have. Do you have any things you want to share with us? Any additional things that you wanted to add?
Just that the New York Guard is 100 years old, still going. We're looking forward to the next 100 years. We're excited to celebrate our centennial. Like I said, we're having our big gala this whole year with the shirts and the coins and the mugs, and it's a once in a lifetime event, and it's being supported by the National Guard as well. They're supporting us with help us made a plaque that's going to be unveiled to commemorate this 100-year milestone, and we're always looking for people to join the New York Guard. Yes, you have volunteers, but you know what? I did it paid for a couple of years. National Guard, I went back. Why? Because I still have friends that I met from 2002 that are still in it, and I enjoy it, and we're appreciated. The state appreciates us. The staff appreciates us, and when people see us in uniform, they go, "Oh, you're a National Guard." No, we're New York Guard. Oh, what's that? And it gives us a chance to explain it. And I think it's the state's best kept secret. So we don't want it to be a secret. We don't want it to be a secret anymore. We want people to join. You can come in up to age 65, I think now, or 68 or something, or we're up there. I think 65 is the max age for New York Guard.
And I think it's really important because, and I think the state defense forces need to get the message out because you get a lot of people that go to MEPS, or you get discharged from the military for medical reasons, whether it be asthma. But you get a lot of people that go to MEPS and, they cleared the background check criminal wise, and they go through the MEPS, and they had a broken bone or whatever minor or medium medical issue pops up, and they can't join U.S. Army or Marines or and such, and that'll be a perfect opportunity to say, well, you can't do this, but you can. We have the state defense forces; they augment the National Guard. And do you ever? And one question I always wanted to ask you is, do you ever foresee like how do I say, a setup where, like, for example, people try to go into the National Guard, and for these reasons, the minor or medium medical issues that they have, they can't go into the National Guard, but at MEPS, they're referred to the New York Guard. Is that a possibility that a National Guard recruiter says, look, you can't get you in because of this, and I apologize. Here's if you want to still serve and serve along, help the National Guard out, here's a card for the New York Guard. They augment us, they support us, and look them up. They'll get you some military training, and you'll be able to at least contribute something.
I don't see that happen. I don't see that happening at MEPS, but we do have a very good relationship with the recruiting command, and it depends on the recruiters, the individual recruiters, but we have gotten a lot of referrals from the National Guard recruiting or recruiters who we work closely with, and they've actually sent us names and say, look, or they would refer them, say, look, unfortunately, for whatever reason, you couldn't get into the National Guard service. Here, go. You still want to serve? Here's the contacts of the National Guard. Sorry, here's the contacts in the New York Guard, and we've gotten a good number, and we're trying to increase that number.
And I'm hoping there's more, stuff like that happens. And there's something that recently passed in June. They where the National Guard revised the National Guard regulation. I think it was 10-4, the interaction between National Guard and State Defense Forces, where they kind of made it a little bit more easier for the State Defense Forces to work with the National Guard. So hopefully in the future, maybe we'll be able to be able to, how do I say,
integrate better.
Integrate, yes. So this way, like for example, with recruits as well as missions and such, it'll be really good, because then we could take those people that couldn't serve in the National Guard because broken leg, whatever it may be, and be able to put them in the New York Guard and still support the National Guard through Homeland Defense missions, or whether it be engineering, or for any type of situation. I think that's where the future would be great, because then we can help the National Guard in any way possible.
We're seeing that more and more. Yeah, and that's what we hope to see. And it takes time, but we're only 100 years young, so maybe within the next 100 years. 100 years. Yeah, you'll see. But it's evolving. It's getting better. We have very good relationships, and even here's an example. We have band members. We have the New York Guard band that we had a lot of. We had a few soldiers leaving the National Guard band. They retired, and they still wanted to continue playing, and they came to the New York Guard band, and vice versa. The National Guard is short with band members, and they said, "Hey, New York Guard, can you come and assist us during our annual training?" And we have our band is traveling with the National Guard band during their annual training. Playing with the National Guard during their summer tour, and they even play with them during parades. So they've established that relationship. I've established with the public affairs that if need be in the New York City, Long Island area, that if you need coverage, I'm here, because that's where I live. Most of their assets are upstate, and we have if they need medical, or if they need lawyers, or if they need it's getting better, and it all depends on personal connections.
I think that's a really funny story, because you had members of the National Guard band that retired, went to the New York Guard band, but then augmented their same. Right.
Yeah. So they're still playing with they're playing with their old bandmates that they just left.
That's a great example. I love that. And I think that the thing about the New York Guard, which is great, I mean, this is a great example, is because the New York Guard is a state defense force. Its primary objective is support and augment the National Guard, and you guys do. But the New York Guard, I mean, you guys are top of the heap, where you're saying, look, whatever we can do to help the National Guard out, we will do. We will. And exactly, you guys are changing the fundamentals of the way you guys train, saying, look, the National Guard needs forklift operators. We need this, we need that, we need chainsaw operators. And you guys are restructuring the entire organization to fulfill those needs. Say, hey, this is what you need. We'll provide you. And whenever you guys need us, we'll be there. And I think that's incredible. I think that's exactly what the State Defense Forces are all about.
Yeah. Yeah, we're excited. We're excited. It's an exciting year for us. Like I said, celebrating 100 years. Big celebration in August before annual training. This special dedication plaque that's going to be dedicated, and then at the end of the year, a big gala that we're looking to hold. So if you're down in this area,
that sounds good. I'll definitely attend, and if not, I'll grab some images, throw it on the website, so this way every State Defense Force soldier can partake in your 100-year celebration. So congratulations on 100 years, and
thank you
for 100 more.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for taking time out and doing the interview, and hopefully we'll catch you again.
My pleasure. And if your viewers are interested, we're on Facebook. Just look us up, New York Guard, and join us and follow us.
Awesome. See you, Mark.
Thank you.